Agreement linguistics. In linguistics, agreement or concord, abbreviated AGR, occurs when a word changes form depending on the other words to which it relates. 1. It is an instance of inflection, and usually involves making the value of some grammatical category, such as gender or person, agree, between varied words or parts of the sentence. For example, in standard English, one may say I am or he is, but not, I is, or, he am. This is because English grammar requires that the verb and its subject agree in person. The pronouns I and he are first and third person respectively, as are the verb forms am and is. The verb form must be selected so that it has the same person as the subject in contrast to notional agreement, which is based on meaning. 2. 3. By category. Agreement generally involves matching the value of some grammatical category between different constituents of a sentence, or sometimes between sentences, as in some cases where a pronoun is required to agree with its antecedent or referent. Some categories that commonly trigger grammatical agreement are noted below. Person. Agreement based on grammatical person is found mostly between verb and subject. An example from English I am versus he is has been given in the introduction to this article. Agreement between pronoun or corresponding possessive adjective and antecedent also requires the selection of the correct person. For example, if the antecedent is the first-person noun phrase Mary and I, then a first-person pronoun we, us, are, is required. However, most noun phrases the dog, my cats, Jack and Jill, etc. are third person, and are replaced by a third-person pronoun he, she, it, they, etc. Number. Agreement based on grammatical number can occur between verb and subject, as in the case of grammatical person discussed above. In fact, the two categories are often conflated within verb conjugation patterns. There are specific verb forms for first-person singular, second-person plural and so on. Some examples. I really am first pers. Singular purses. We really are first pers. Plural, the boy sings third pers. Singular purses. The boys sing third pers. Plural. Again as with person, there is agreement in number between pronouns or their corresponding possessives and antecedents. The girl did her job versus the girls did their job. Agreement also occurs between nouns and their specifier and modifiers, in some situations. This is common in languages such as French and Spanish, where articles, determiners and adjectives both attributive and predicative agree in number with the nouns they qualify. Le grand homme, the great man, versus les grands hommes, the great men, el hombre alto, the tall man, versus los hombres altos, the tall men. In English this is not such a common feature, although there are certain determiners that occur specifically with singular or plural nouns only. One big car versus two big cars. Much great work versus many great works. Gender. In languages in which grammatical gender plays a significant role, there is often agreement in gender between a noun and its modifiers. For example, in French, le grand homme, the big man, homme is masculine versus le grande chaise, the big chair, chaise is feminine. Such agreement is also found with predicate adjectives. L'homme est grand, the man is big, versus la chaise est grande, the chair is big. However, in some languages, such as German, this is not the case, only attributive modifiers show agreement. Der grosse man, the big man, with inflection versus der Mann ist groß, the man is big, without. In the case of verbs, gender agreement is less common, although it may still occur, for example in Arabic verbs where the second and third persons take different inflections for masculine and feminine subjects. In the French compound past tense, the past participle, formally and adjective, agrees in certain circumstances with the subject or with an object, see passé composé for details. In Russian and most other Slavic languages, the form of the past tense agrees in gender with the subject, again due to derivation from an earlier adjectival construction. Katama, river pro X. In Kavis. // Katama, river place pro X. In Kavis. There is also agreement in gender between pronouns and their antecedents. Examples of this can be found in English, although English pronouns principally follow natural gender rather than grammatical gender. The man reached his destination versus the ship reached its destination. For more details see gender in English. Case. In languages that have a system of cases, there is often agreement by case between a noun and its modifiers. For example, in German, der gut man, the good man, nominative case versus der guten Mann, es, of the good man, genitive case. In fact, the modifiers of nouns in languages such as German and Latin agree with their nouns in number, gender and case. All three categories are conflated together in paradigms of declension. Case agreement is not a significant feature of English, only personal pronouns and the pronoun who have any case marking. Agreement between such pronouns can sometimes be observed. Who came first, he or his brother, versus whom did you see, him or his brother. Alliterative agreement. A rare type of agreement that phonologically copies parts of the head rather than agreeing with a grammatical category. For example, in Venoke. In this example, what is copied is not a prefix, but rather the initial syllable of the head, river. Languages can have no conventional agreement whatsoever, as in Japanese or Malay, barely any, as in English, a small amount, as in spoken French, a moderate amount, as in Greek or Latin, or a large amount, as in Swahili. By language. English. Modern English does not have a particularly large amount of agreement, although it is present. Apart from verbs, the main examples are the determiners, this, and, that, which become, these, and, those, respectively when the following noun is plural. This woman, these women. That dog, those dogs. All regular verbs and nearly all irregular ones in English agree in the third person singular of the present indicative by adding a suffix of either s or s. The latter is generally used after stems ending in the sibilant sh, ch, ss, or zz, e.g. he rushes, it lurches, she amasses, it buzzes. Present tense of to love. Person. Number. Singular plural. First I love, we love. Second you love, you love. Third he, she, it loves, they love. In the present tense indicative mood, the following verbs have irregular conjugations for the third person singular. To have, has. To do, does. To say, says. Note that there is a distinction between irregular verb conjugations in the spoken language and irregular spellings of words in the written language. Linguistics generally concerns itself with the natural, spoken language, and not with spelling conventions in the written language. The verb to go is often given as an example of a verb with an irregular present tense conjugation, on account of adding s instead of just s for the third person singular conjugation. However, this is merely an arbitrary spelling convention. In the spoken language, the present tense conjugation of to go is entirely regular. If we were to classify to go as irregular based on the spelling of goes, then by the same reasoning, we would have to include other regular verbs with irregular spelling conventions such as to veto vetoes, to echo echoes, to carry carries, to hurry hurries, etc. In contrast, the verb to do is actually irregular in its spoken third-person singular conjugation, in addition to having a somewhat irregular spelling. While the verb do rhymes with shoe, its conjugation does not rhyme with shoes, the verb does rhymes with fuzz. Conversely, the verb to say, while it may appear to be regular based on its spelling, is in fact irregular in its third-person singular present tense conjugation. Say is pronounced see, but says is pronounced. Say rhymes with pay, but says does not rhyme with pays. The highly irregular verb to be is the only verb with more agreement than this in the present tense. Present tense of to be. Person. Number. Singular plural. First I am we are. Second you or you are. Third he, she, it is they are. In English, defective verbs generally show no agreement for person or number. They include the modal verbs, can, may, shall, will, must, should, ought. In early modern English agreement existed for the second person singular of all verbs in the present tense, as well as in the past tense of some common verbs. This was usually in the form est, but street and t also occurred. Note that this does not affect the endings for other persons and numbers. Example present tense forms, thou wilt, thou shalt, thou art, thou hast, thou canst. Example past tense forms, thou wouldst, thou shouldst, thou wast, thou hadst, thou couldst. Note also the agreement shown by to be even in a subjunctive mood. Imperfect subjunctive of to be in early modern English. Person. Number. Singular plural. First, if I were, if we were. Second, if thou wert, if you were. Third, if he, she, it were, if they were. However, for nearly all regular verbs, a separate thou form was no longer commonly used in the past tense. Thus the auxiliary verb to do is used, e.g. thou didst help, not thou helpedst. Here are some special cases for subject-verb agreement in English. Always singular. Indefinite pronouns like one, all, everyone, everything, everybody, nothing, nobody, anyone, anything, anybody, another, etc. Are treated as singular. 5. At least in formal written English, all's well that ends well. One sows, another reaps. Together everyone achieves more, that's why we're a team. If wealth is lost, nothing is lost. If health is lost, something is lost. If the character is lost, everything is lost. Nothing succeeds like success. Exceptions. None is construed in the singular or plural as the sense may require, though the plural is commonly used. 5. When none is clearly intended to mean not one, it should be followed by a singular verb. The SAT testing service, however, considers none to be strictly singular. 6. None so deaf as those who don't hear. None prosper by begging. The pronouns neither and either are singular, although they seem to be referring to two things. Words after each, every, and many are treated as singular. 5. Every dog is a lion at home. Many a penny makes a pound. Each man and each woman has a vote. Exceptions. When the subject is followed by each, the verb agrees to the original subject. Double coincidence of wants occurs when two parties each desire to sell what the other exactly wants to buy. A measurement or quantity is treated as singular. $5,000 is a high price to pay. Exceptions. $10 were scattered on the floor. Equals $10 bills. Exceptions. Fraction or percentage can be singular or plural based on the noun that follows it. Half a loaf is better than no bread. 1 in 3 people globally do not have access to safe drinking water. A question with who or what takes a singular verb. Who is to bell the cat? A food web is a graphical representation of what eats what in an ecosystem. A mathematical expression is treated as singular. 2 and 2 is 4. Always plural. 2 or more subjects join by and take a plural verb. 5. The MD and the CEO of the company have arrived. Time and tide wait for none. Wheel and woe come by turns. Day and night are alike to a blind man. Exceptions. If the nouns, however, suggest one idea or refer to the same thing or person, the verb is singular. 5. The good and generous thinks the whole world is friendly. The new bed and breakfast opens this week. The MD and CEO has arrived. Exceptions. Words joined to a subject by with, in addition to, along with, as well as together with, besides, not, etc. are parenthetical and the verb agrees with the original subject. 5. A quantity expressing a certain number of items is plural. E.g. dozen, score 5, 1 cow breaks the fence, and a dozen leap it. A dozen of eggs cost around $1.50. 1 mole of oxygen react with 2 moles of hydrogen gas to form water. A phrase of the form the plus adjective is plural. The rich plan for tomorrow, the poor for today. Some words appear singular but are plural, police, cattle, etc. 5. Where the cattle stand together, the lion lies down hungry. When the word enemy is used in the sense of armed forces another nation, a plural verb is used. Singular or plural. When subjects are joined by or, nor, not only, but also, etc. The verb agrees with the nearer subject. 5. Rule of proximity. Success or failure depends on individuals. Neither I nor you are to blame. Either you or he has to go. But at times, it is considered better to reword such grammatically correct but awkward sentences. Objects with two parts such as dresses like trousers, pants, gloves, breeches, jeans, tights, shorts, pajamas, drawers, etc. And instruments like scissors, tweezers, shears, binoculars, tongs, glasses, specs, bellows, pincers, etc. Take a plural verb when used in the crude form and are singular when used with a pair of. 5. A collective noun is singular when thought of as a unit and plural when the individuals are considered. 5. The jury has arrived at a unanimous decision. The committee are divided in their opinion. His family is quite large. His family have given him full support in his times of grief. There's a huge audience in the gallery today. The audience are requested to take their seats. Exceptions. British English, however, tends to treat team and company names as plural. India beat Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in a pulsating final to deliver World Cup glory to their cricket-mad population for the first time since 1983. BBC 7. India wins Cricket World Cup for first time in 28 years. Washington Post 8. Phrases like more than one, majority of or singular or plural based on the noun it modifies. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Pains and means can be singular or plural, but the construction must be consistent. In the sense of wealth, means always takes a plural verb. 5 barracks, headquarters, whereabouts, and aims can take a singular verb, as well as the plural verb. Latin. Compared with English, Latin is an example of a highly inflected language. The consequences. Conjunction grammar. In grammar, a conjunction, abbreviated conj or CNJ, is a part of speech that connects words, phrases, or clauses, which are called its conjuncts. That description is vague enough to overlap with those of other parts of speech because what constitutes a conjunction must be defined for each language. In English, a given word may have several senses and in some contexts be a preposition but a conjunction in others, depending on the syntax. For example, after is a preposition in, he left after the fight, but a conjunction in, he left after they fought. In general, a conjunction is an invariant, non-inflecting, grammatical particle that stands between conjuncts. A conjunction may be placed at the beginning of a sentence. 1. But some superstition about the practice persists. 2. The definition may be extended to idiomatic phrases that behave as a unit and perform the same function, e.g., as well as, provided that. A simple literary example of a conjunction is The Truth of Nature and the Power of Giving Interest, Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Biographia Literaria. 3. Separation of clauses. Commas are often used to separate clauses. In English, a comma is used to separate a dependent clause from the independent clause if the dependent clause comes first. After I fed the cat, I brushed my clothes. Compare this with I brushed my clothes after I fed the cat. A relative clause takes commas if it is non-restrictive, as in I cut down all the trees, which were over 6 feet tall. Without the comma, this would mean that only the trees more than 6 feet tall were cut down. Some style guides prescribe that two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so must be separated by a comma placed before the conjunction. 4. 5. In the following sentences, where the second clause is independent because it can stand alone as a sentence, the comma is considered by those guides to be necessary. Mary walked to the party, but she was unable to walk home. Designer clothes are silly, and I can't afford them anyway. Don't push that button, or 12 tons of high explosives will go off right under our feet. In the following sentences, where the second half of a sentence is not an independent clause because it does not contain an explicit subject, those guides prescribe that the comma be omitted. Mary walked to the party but was unable to walk home. I think designer clothes are silly and can't afford them anyway. However, such guides permit the comma to be omitted if the second independent clause is very short, typically when the second independent clause is an imperative. 4. 5. As in, sit down and shut up. The above guidance is not universally accepted or applied. Long coordinate clauses are nonetheless usually separated by commas. 6. She had very little to live on, but she would never have dreamed of taking what was not hers. A comma between clauses may change the connotation, reducing or eliminating ambiguity. In the following examples, the thing in the first sentence that is very relaxing is a cool day, whereas in the second sentence it is a walk, since the introduction of commas makes, on a cool day, parenthetical. They took a walk on a cool day that was very relaxing. They took a walk on a cool day that was very relaxing. If another prepositional phrase is introduced, ambiguity increases, but when commas separate each clause and phrase, the restrictive clause can remain a modifier of the walk. They took a walk in the park on a cool day that was very relaxing. They took a walk in the park on a cool day that was very relaxing. In some languages, such as German and Polish, stricter rules apply on comma use between clauses, with dependent clauses always being set off with commas, and commas being generally proscribed before certain coordinating conjunctions. The joining of two independent sentences with a comma and no conjunction, as in, it is nearly 5:30, we cannot reach town before dark, is known as a comma splice and is sometimes considered an error in English. 7. In most cases a semicolon should be used instead. A comma splice should not be confused, though, with the literary device called a syndodon, in which coordinating conjunctions are purposely omitted for a specific stylistic effect. Etymology. Beginning in the 17th century, an element of a conjunction was known as a conjunct. 8. A conjunction itself was then called a connective. 9. That archaic term, however, diminished in usage during the early 20th century. 10. In its place, the terms coordinating conjunction, coined in the mid-19th century, and correlative conjunction, coined in the early 19th century, became more commonly used. 11. 12. Coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions, also called coordinators, are conjunctions that join, or coordinate, two or more items such as words, main clauses, or sentences of equal syntactic importance. In English, the mnemonic acronym fanboys can be used to remember the most commonly used coordinators, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. 13. These are not the only coordinating conjunctions. Various others are used, including, and nor, British but nor, British neither, they don't gamble, neither do they smoke, no more, they don't gamble, no more do they smoke, and, only, I would go, only I don't have time. 14. Ch. 9. 15. P. 171 types of coordinating conjunctions include cumulative conjunctions, adversative conjunctions, alternative conjunctions, and illative conjunctions. 16. Here are some examples of coordinating conjunctions in English and what they do. For, an illative i.e. inferential presents rationale, they do not gamble or smoke, for they are ascetics. And, a cumulative, adds non-contrasting items or ideas, they gamble, and they smoke. For, an illative i.e. inferential presents rationale, they do not gamble or smoke, for they are ascetics. And, a cumulative, adds non-contrasting items or ideas, they gamble, and they smoke. Nor, presents an alternative non-contrasting, also negative idea, they do not gamble, nor do they smoke. But, an adversative, presents a contrast or exception, they gamble, but they don't smoke. Or, presents an alternative non-contrasting item or idea, every day they gamble, or they smoke. Yet, an adversative, presents a strong contrast or exception, they gamble, yet they don't smoke. So, an illative i.e. inferential presents a consequence, he gambled well last night, so he smoked a cigar to celebrate. Only and, or, nor are actual coordinating logical operators connecting atomic propositions or syntactic multiple units of the same type, subject, objects, predicative, attributive expressions, etc. within a sentence. The cause and consequence relative conjunctions are pseudo-coordinators, being expressible as antecedent or consequent to logical implications or grammatically as subordinate conditional clauses. Correlative conjunctions. Correlative conjunctions are conjunctions within a syntax that aggregates or contrasts correlated actions, characteristics, or items in the manner of 17. 1. The use of whether paired with or, as well as if paired with then as conditional conjunctions, e.g., vegetables are nutritious whether you love them or you hate them. If you can't afford it, then don't buy it. 2. A nominal phrase headed by a negating determiner paired with an ensuing nominal phrase headed by nor, e.g., the sweets convey neither corporate coldness nor warmth. 3. An adjective or adjectival phrase or an adverb or an adverbial phrase paired with an ensuing conjunction, e.g., successes that are as scattered as they are rare. He ran both far and fast. She's either a singer or an actress. A puppy that's not only cute but also smart. Neither the caller's name nor the number was visible. Just as we left, so we also decided never to return. There are as many dogs as there are cats. No sooner had we received the call than we left the house. I'd rather flee than fight. It's not a frog but rather a tadpole. Conjunctions of time. Examples. After we'll do that after you do this. As long as that's fine as long as you agree to our conditions. As soon as we'll get to that as soon as we finish this. By the time he had left by the time you arrive. Long before we'll be gone long before you arrive. Now that we can get going now that they have left. Once we'll have less to worry about once the boss leaves. Since we haven't been able to upload our work since the network went down. Till please hold on till the server reboots. Until we are waiting until you send us the confirmation. When they can do what they want when they want. Whenever there is a good chance of rain whenever there are clouds in the sky. While I really appreciate you waiting while I finish up. Subordinating conjunctions. Subordinating conjunctions, also called subordinators, are conjunctions that introduce content, relative, and adverbial clauses as subordinate ones, and join them to other clauses, whether independent or dependent. The most common subordinating conjunctions in English include after, although, as far as if, as long as soon as though, because, before, even if, even though, every time, if, in order that, since, so that, then, that, though, unless, until, when, whenever, where, whereas, wherever, and while. 18. A complementizer is a subordinating conjunction that introduces a content clause, that is, a clause that is a complement of the verb phrase, instead of the more typical nominal subject or object, e.g. I wonder whether he'll be late. I hope that he'll be on time. Some subordinating conjunctions, when used to introduce a phrase instead of a full clause, become prepositions with identical meanings. Relativizers are subordinators that introduce relative clauses. Subordinating conjunction performs two important functions within a sentence, marking the higher rank of the independent clause and translating between the two clauses' ideas by indicating the nexus of time, place, or cause. Subordinators therefore structure the relationship between the clauses. 19. In many verb-final languages, subordinate clauses must precede the main clause on which they depend. The equivalents to the subordinating conjunctions of non-verb-final languages such as English are either clause-final conjunctions, e.g. in Japanese, or suffixes attached to the verb, and not separate words. 20. Such languages often lack conjunctions as a part of speech, because form of the verb used is formally nominalized and cannot occur in an independent clause. The clause-final conjunction or suffix attached to the verb is a marker of case and is also used in nouns to indicate certain functions. In this sense, the subordinate clauses of these languages have much in common with postpositional phrases. In other West Germanic languages like German and Dutch, the word order after a subordinating conjunction is different from that in an independent clause, e.g. in Dutch want for is coordinating, but omdat because is subordinating. The clause after the coordinating conjunction has normal word order, but the clause after the subordinating conjunction has verb final word order. Compare, hij gaat naar huis, want hij is ziek. He goes home, for he is ill. Hij gaat naar huis, omdat hij ziek is. He goes home, because he is ill. Similarly, in German, den for is coordinating, but while because is subordinating, get nach Haus, den ist krank. He goes home, for he is ill, get nach Haus, while krank ist. He goes home, because he is ill. Starting a sentence. It is now generally agreed that a sentence may begin with a coordinating conjunction like and, 21 but, 22 or yet. 23. While some people consider this usage improper, while its modern American usage labels its prohibition a supposed rule without foundation, and a prejudice that lingers from a bygone time. 24. Some associate this belief with their early school days. One conjecture is that it results from young children's being taught to avoid simple sentences starting with and are encouraged to use more complex structures with subordinating conjunctions. 21. In the words of Brian A. Garner, the widespread belief that it is an error to begin a sentence with a conjunction such as and, but, or so has no historical or grammatical foundation. 25. And good writers have frequently started sentences with conjunctions. 24. There is also a misleading guideline that a sentence should never begin with because. Because is a subordinating conjunction and introduces a dependent clause. It may start a sentence when the main clause follows the dependent clause. 26. Examples. And now we have Facebook and Twitter and WordPress and Tumblr and all those other platforms that take our daily doings and transform them into media. 27. So any modern editor who is not paranoid is a fool. 28. And strikes are protected globally, existing in many of the countries with labor laws outside the Wagner Act model. 29. A synonym. Cohesion linguistics. Noun. In grammar, a noun is a word that represents a concrete or abstract thing, such as living creatures, places, actions, qualities, states of existence, and ideas. A noun may serve as an object or subject within a phrase, clause, or sentence. 1. Note 1. In linguistics, nouns constitute a lexical category, part of speech defined according to how its members combine with members of other lexical categories. The syntactic occurrence of nouns differs among languages. In English, prototypical nouns are common nouns or proper nouns that can occur with determiners, articles and attributive adjectives, and can function as the head of a noun phrase. According to traditional and popular classification, pronouns are distinct from nouns, but in much modern theory they are considered a subclass of nouns. 2. Every language has various linguistic and grammatical distinctions between nouns and verbs. 3. History. Word classes parts of speech were described by Sanskrit grammarians from at least the 5th century BC. In Yaska's Narukta, the noun nama is one of the 4 main categories of words defined. 4. The ancient Greek equivalent was onoma, onoma, referred to by Plato in the Cratylus dialogue, and later listed as one of the 8 parts of speech in the art of grammar, attributed to Dionysius. The ancient Greek equivalent was onoma, onoma, referred to by Plato in the Cratylus dialogue, and later listed as one of the 8 parts of speech in the art of grammar, attributed to Dionysius Thrax, 2nd century BC. The term used in Latin grammar was nomen. All of these terms for noun were also words meaning name. 5. The English word noun is derived from the Latin term. Through the Anglo-Norman nom, other forms include nami, and noun itself. The word classes were defined partly by the grammatical forms that they take. In Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin, for example, nouns are categorized by gender and inflective for case and number. Because adjectives share these 3 grammatical categories, adjectives typically were placed in the same class as nouns. Similarly, the Latin term nomen includes both nouns, substantives, and adjectives, as originally did the English word noun, the 2 types being distinguished as nouns substantive and nouns adjective, or substantive nouns and adjective nouns, or simply substantives and adjectives. The word nominal is now sometimes used to denote a class that includes both nouns and adjectives. Many European languages use a cognate of the word substantive as a basic term for noun, for example, Spanish sustantiva, noun. Nouns in the dictionaries of such languages are demarked by the abbreviation S or SB instead of N, which may be used for proper nouns or neuter nouns instead. In English, modern authors use the word substantive to refer to a class that includes both nouns, single words, and noun phrases, multi-word units that are sometimes called noun equivalents. 6. It can also be used as a counterpart to attributive when distinguishing between a noun being used as the head, main word, of a noun phrase and a noun being used as a noun adjunct. For example, the noun knee can be said to be used substantively in my knee hurts, but attributively in the patient needed knee replacement. Examples. The cat sat on the chair. Please hand in your assignments by the end of the week. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Plato was an influential philosopher in ancient Greece. Rebel the night, rob, murder, and commit the oldest sins the newest kind of ways. Henry IV Part 2, Act 4 Scene 5. A noun can co-occur with an article or an attributive adjective. Verbs and adjectives cannot. In the following, an asterisk in front of an example means that this example is ungrammatical. The name is a noun, can co-occur with a definite article. The baptize is a verb, cannot co-occur with a definite article. Constant circulation is a noun, can co-occur with the attributive adjective constant circulate is a verb, cannot co-occur with the attributive adjective constant. A fright is a noun, can co-occur with the indefinite article a. And afraid is an adjective, cannot co-occur with the article a. Terrible fright, the noun fright can co-occur with the adjective terrible afraid, the adjective afraid cannot co-occur with the adjective terrible. Characterization and definition. Nouns have sometimes been characterized in terms of the grammatical categories by which they may be varied, for example gender, case, and number. Such definitions tend to be language-specific, since different languages may apply different categories. Nouns are frequently defined, particularly in informal contexts, in terms of their semantic properties, their meanings. Nouns are described as words that refer to a person, place, thing, event, substance, quality, quantity, etc., but this manner of definition has been criticized as uninformative. 7. Several English nouns lack an intrinsic referent of their own, behalf as in on behalf of, dint by dint of, and sake for the sake of. 8. Moreover, other parts of speech may have reference-like properties, the verbs to reign or to mother, or adjectives like read, and there is little difference between the adverb gleefully and the prepositional phrase with glee. Note 2. A functional approach defines a noun as a word that can be the head of a nominal phrase, i.e., a phrase with referential function, without needing to go through morphological transformation. 9. 10. Classification. Nouns can have a number of different properties and are often subcategorized based on various of these criteria, depending on their occurrence in a language. Nouns may be classified according to morphological properties such as which prefixes or suffixes they take, and also their relations in syntax, how they combine with other words and expressions of various types. Many such classifications are language-specific, given the obvious differences in syntax and morphology. In English, for example, it might be noted that nouns are words that can co-occur with definite articles, as stated at the start of this article, but this could not apply in Russian, which has no definite articles. Gender. In some languages, common and proper nouns have grammatical gender. Typically masculine, feminine, and neuter. The gender of a noun, as well as its number and case, where applicable, will often require agreement in words that modify or are used along with it. In French, for example, the singular form of a definite article is le for masculine nouns and le for feminine. Adjectives and certain verb forms also change, sometimes with the simple addition of e for feminine. Grammatical gender often correlates with the form of the noun and the inflection pattern it follows. For example, in both Italian and Romanian, most nouns ending in are feminine. Gender can also correlate with the sex or social gender of the nouns referent, particularly in the case of nouns denoting people, and sometimes animals, though with exceptions. The feminine French noun person can refer to a male or a female person. In modern English, even common nouns like hen and princess and proper nouns like Alicia do not have grammatical gender. Their femininity has no relevance in syntax, though they denote persons or animals of a specific sex. The gender of a pronoun must be appropriate for the item referred to. The girl said the ring was from her new boyfriend, but he denied it was from him. 3 nouns, and 3 gendered pronouns, or 4, if this her is counted as a possessive pronoun. Proper and common nouns. A proper noun, sometimes called a proper name, though the two terms normally have different meanings, is a noun that represents a unique entity. India, Pegasus, Jupiter, Confucius, Pequot, as distinguished from common nouns or appellative nouns which describe a class of entities: country, animal, planet, person, ship. 11. In modern English, most proper nouns, unlike most common nouns, are capitalized regardless of context. Albania, Newton, Pasteur, America, as are many of the forms that are derived from them. The common noun in, he's an Albanian, the adjectival forms in, he's of Albanian heritage, and, Newtonian physics, but not in, pasteurized milk, the second verb in, they sought to Americanize us. Countable nouns and mass nouns. Count nouns or countable nouns are common nouns that can take a plural, can combine with numerals or counting quantifiers e.g., one, two, several, every, most, and can take an indefinite article such as are in languages that have such articles. Examples of count nouns are chair, nose, and occasion. Mass nouns are uncountable. Non-count nouns differ from count nouns in precisely that respect. They cannot take plurals or combine with number words or the above type of quantifiers. For example, the forms of furniture and three furnitures are not used, even though pieces of furniture can be counted. The distinction between mass and count nouns does not primarily concern their corresponding reference but more how the nouns present those entities. 12.13. Many nouns have both countable and uncountable uses. For example, soda is countable in, give me 3 sodas, but uncountable in, he likes soda. Collective nouns. Collective nouns are nouns that, even when they are treated in their morphology and syntax as singular, refer to groups consisting of more than one individual or entity. Examples include committee, government, and police. In English, these nouns may be followed by a singular or a plural verb and referred to by a singular or plural pronoun, the singular being generally preferred when referring to the body as a unit and the plural often being preferred, especially in British English, when emphasizing the individual members. 14. Examples of acceptable and unacceptable use given by Gowers in plain words include, 14. A committee was appointed to consider this subject. Singular, the committee were unable to agree. Plural. The committee were of one mind when I sat in on them. Unacceptable use of plural concrete nouns and abstract nouns. Concrete nouns refer to physical entities that can, in principle at least, be observed by at least one of the senses chair, apple, Janet, atom, as items supposed to exist in the physical world. Abstract nouns, on the other hand, refer to abstract objects, ideas or concepts justice, anger, solubility, duration. Some nouns have both concrete and abstract meanings. Art usually refers to something abstract. Art is important in human culture, but it can also refer to a concrete item. I put my daughter's art up on the fridge. A noun might have a literal concrete and also a figurative abstract meaning. A brass key, and, the key to success, a block in the pipe, and, a mental block. Similarly, some abstract nouns have developed etymologically by figurative extension from literal roots drawback, fraction, holdout, uptake. Many abstract nouns in English are formed by adding a suffix ness, ity, ion, to adjectives or verbs, happiness and serenity from the adjectives happy and serene, circulation from the verb circulate. Alienable versus inalienable nouns. Illustrating the wide range of possible classifying principles for nouns, the AWA language of Papua New Guinea 15 regiments nouns according to how ownership is assigned, as alienable possession or inalienable possession. An alienably possessed item, a tree, for example, can exist even without a possessor. But inalienably possessed items are necessarily associated with their possessor and are referred to differently, for example with nouns that function as kin terms meaning, father, etc., body part nouns meaning, shadow, hair, etc., or part whole nouns meaning, top, bottom, etc. Noun phrases. A noun phrase, or NP, is a phrase usually headed by a common noun, a proper noun, or a pronoun. The head may be the only constituent, or it may be modified by determiners and adjectives. For example, the dog sat near Miss Curtis and wagged its tail, contains 3 NPs, the dog subject of the verb sat and wagged, Miss Curtis complement of the preposition near, and its tail object of wagged. You became their teacher, contains 2 NPs, you subject of became and their teacher. Note 3. Nouns in relation to other word classes. Pronouns. Nouns and noun phrases can typically be replaced by pronouns, such as he, it, she, they, which, these, and those, to avoid repetition or explicit identification, or for other reasons but as noted earlier, current theory often classifies pronouns as a subclass of nouns parallel to prototypical nouns. For example, in the sentence, Gareth thought she was weird, the word she is a pronoun that refers to a person just as the noun Gareth does. The word one can replace parts of noun phrases, and it sometimes stands in for a noun. An example is given below. John's car is newer than the one that Bill has, but one can also stand in for larger parts of a noun phrase. For example, in the following example, one can stand in for new car. This new car is cheaper than that one. Nominalization. Nominalization is a process whereby a word that belongs to another part of speech comes to be used as a noun. This can be a way to create new nouns, or to use other words in ways that resemble nouns. In French and Spanish, for example, adjectives frequently act as nouns referring to people who have the characteristics denoted by the adjective. This sometimes happens in English as well, as in the following examples. This legislation will have the most impact on the poor. The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the powerful. The Socialist International is a worldwide association of political parties. See also.